Over the years, one of the questions as I've traveled and ministered at various churches around the country, one of the questions that I've been asked, perhaps as much as any other, is when I'm leading worship, should I have planned out ahead of time or should I be spontaneous during the time of worship? And my response to that question is yes. Let me kind of flesh that out a little bit for you. See, I've been in churches where they told me that they believed that if something happened spontaneously during the service, that it was from God. And if something was planned out ahead of time, it wasn't. I'll be honest, I don't see that idea in Scripture. In fact, I see just the opposite. Did you know that God had a plan from the very beginning of time for the salvation of the world? He didn't create everything, go off and take a nap, come back later and say, "Oh no, son, look what they've done. What are we going to do?" No, he had a plan from the very beginning of time. Do you remember in the Old Testament, the one time when they sent the singers out ahead of the army? Do you know why they did that? It was because they had sought God beforehand, and he said, "Don't worry, I'm going to win this battle for you." And so they felt confident to send the singers out ahead of the army. They didn't wait until they were in the midst of the battle. They sought God ahead of time. See, I'm convinced that God knows at least by, maybe Saturday night, maybe sooner, what he wants to happen on Sunday morning. And if we'll ask him, he'll tell us. See, God is not in the business of frustrating his people. If he calls us to do something, he will equip us to do it. And so when I'm going to lead worship for a service, I am praying, asking God to guide me, to lead me, to give me a measure of his heart for this service and what he wants to accomplish and what my role is in it. And then, based on my faith in an ever-faithful God, I'm making a list of songs that I'm planning on using in that service. Now, let me give you the other side. Because everything doesn't always go exactly like my list says it should. Sometimes we end up dropping out a song. Sometimes we flip-flop a couple of songs. Now, I would suggest that if I'm honestly seeking God beforehand, that a major deviation is going to be the exception, not the rule. But there are little things that happen, and let me try to explain to you why I think some of those little things happen. Years ago, there was a pretty common phrase, both in culture and in the church, quality time, spending quality time with family. I quickly recognized that quality time only comes from quantity time. See, when my kids were younger, I couldn't go to one of them and say, "Hey, look, I got about 10 minutes right now. Let's spend some quality time together. Let's talk. What would you like to talk about?" If I did that, what am I going to get? Blank stare, right? But if we'd go throw the baseball around or go to a park or get an ice cream cone together, whatever, it was amazing some of the conversations that we could get into. But it was those spontaneous little things that just happen that help build relationships, those things that you cannot plan out ahead of time. Let me hit this from a different angle and then kind of tie it all back together. Suppose for a moment that I am an elementary school teacher. Perish the thought. And please, if you're an elementary school teacher, don't be offended. I'm simply very clear about what God has and has not called me to, and that is definitely a has not. All right? But, and if you are an elementary school teacher, I have utmost respect for you, believe me. But suppose I'm an elementary school teacher, and I'm using elementary because typically in elementary school, you have the same teacher throughout the course of the day, but they have certain time segments allotted for each subject, all right? And so I'm an elementary school teacher. I get a certain amount of time for this particular subject that I'm teaching, and I'm teaching a new concept in this subject this day, and for whatever reason, the students aren't getting it. There's something, they're just not grasping it, it's not taking in their minds. And I'm looking at my watch, and we've got like a minute to go in the time for this particular subject, and they seem frustrated, and I feel frustrated, but all of a sudden, something clicks. One of the students says, do you mean like this? And he gets it. And because he gets it, then others start getting it. And they're asking, and all of us now we're excited because they're getting it. I'm excited as their teacher that they are getting it. And now I look at my watch and we are now 7 minutes past the time allotted for this particular subject. At that point, honestly, do I care? No. No, because there is something going on here that I cannot plan out ahead of time. Now let's put that idea into the context of leading worship. I'm leading worship. I've got my list of songs. But like I said, everything doesn't always go exactly the way that my list says. Let's say we hit the chorus of this one song and everybody in the place is on their feet worshiping God wholeheartedly. Am I singing this chorus once and moving on? Oh no, there is something going on here that I cannot plan out ahead of time. Wish I could, but I can't. I don't always know what I'm going to say, like between these two songs. I'm not always sure how we're going to end this particular song. My musicians are okay with that. But I'm seeing what's happening in the congregation, and I'm moving off of that. I'm seeing how they're responding, and I'm responding to what they're doing, what's going on there. Now, I am fully aware that you may be watching this video right now and you're going, oh my goodness, I don't think I can do that. Well, guess what? When I started leading worship, I couldn't do that either. God pushed me, He stretched me consistently, continuously, over and over. You know, there are times that you and I are going, God, I don't think I can take anymore. And He's going, yes, you can, watch. Yeah, just exactly like that. But every time, God is faithful. He is never going to ask you to do something that you are not able to do. If He's called you to do something, He's going to give you the ability to be able to do it. And so I want to challenge you to start to think a little bit differently about this whole subject. Maybe God's asking you to step out just a little bit. And I'm not talking, changing things, everything totally different in the middle of the service. For some of you, that would be a normal thing. But I am talking about just seeing what's going on and maybe adding in an extra chorus, maybe, whatever. Seeing what's happening and sharing something from your heart. Not preaching, but just a really quick, 30-second kind of thing in between a couple of songs. Those kind of things can make a world of difference in how people respond. I want to challenge you. Yes, prepare, ask God ahead of time, but also allow those spontaneous little things that build relationships, whether that's relationship with one another, relationship with God. It's all the same kind of idea. Those kind of things will build our relationship, and in the context of congregational worship, it'll build our relationship with Him. I want you to think about that and really start to mentally and then actually step out and do something like that.
Brought to you by myworshipleadingcoach.com.
Helping you to be more fully equipped as a worship leader.